Hey everybody, welcome back to Unlimited Commander. I'm Adam, and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Matt. Matt, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing really good. I'm tired, but I'm doing really good. For those who were paying attention during the weekend that we are currently filming, we just finished Praetors for Change's Crisis Text Line charity. 3 days of magic, commander, of various things that we did, and it was great. They raised a bunch of money. I think the last total with a double up from a contributor ended up being 6,200 ish.
And 14, I believe.
Yeah.
The final number on the weekend before the donation match was $3,107.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a generous contributor who just matched the entire donation.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe, yeah, there should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,214 US dollars.
Yeah.
So that's like 10 grand my money, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And and with $6,200, that is several hundred people being helped out through the text line, because they said it takes $23 to service a texter in need. So
269 people got helped.
269 people, and that feels pretty nice. No pun intended.
Nice.
But I do want to talk about something that we did at the event. So one of the things that ended up coming up is, due to a scheduling conflict, one of the interviews had to be moved. And so I ended up playing a little bit of Arena on stream. So I decided I went in and, with the chat, built a deck by committee. So I let the chat figure out which commander we were going to use. We built a Brawl deck and just had people feeding me cards in the chat. I believe Adam was there in chat to help out with the card selection, which was really good. We got a huge number of replies, though. The deck, and after we had picked a commander, the deck got built pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just went in, played 3 games. Like, it was only like an hour and 15 minutes of time to play. But we managed to get something built and put together. And, like, as much as I like playing miserable commander decks that just kind of stall things out or do something stupid but really difficult, there is something to be said about just playing Italian Smashing Face and just play Galta, turn it sideways. I do love me a nice, good, heavy 12/12 every once in a while. And that deck was really, really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it in the future.
And it came out well. So my beef with Brawl is, like, I really like Brawl in the sense that it gives me something that I like doing, but on Arena. And I like building stuff as most of my commander decks. And we said it just before we went on because we were talking about something else. But a really good way to describe, I think you called it a perfect commander deck, was a bunch of medium stuff and a couple heavy hitters to help them out. And you just can't do that very often on Brawl, because a lot of it is still got that 1v1 feel, a lot of, like, the competitiveness. So you don't end up with a lot of fun brews on Brawl, because usually you end up just running into the Ragavan decks. And, like, I have a Joda a Brawl deck, and it's too slow. And it's unfortunate. So watching you build something just on the fly and then throw it up there, and you went 2-1, by the way, I was keeping track.
Yeah.
And it went really good. And I was really proud of you. You put some junk in there, and I was happy to hear it.
Yeah. I remember I only tried to convince one person that we should not run the card that they asked to run, because they asked us to put Realm Breaker in there. And I was like, is Realm Breaker way too slow for what we're doing? Like, isn't we're going to want? And I'll be like, and I just was like, okay, here's the thing. We're at 99. I'm throwing it in. But know that Chaos Warp is probably the better choice.
It probably would have been, yeah.
We went and played it. Didn't matter anyway. Our 2-1 status was really good. And I think we did get pretty lucky on the people that we played. Because we didn't... Yeah.
encounter those like really heavy controls. I think the one game you did lose was to like a fairy. I think it was five fairy was their commander.
it was Darian
Oh yeah.
the 45th or something like that.
Whatever it is,
yeah, the 48th.
The one that sacrifices to give all of their tokens indestructible.
Indestructible, right? And the truth is that we would have beaten that deck too if I hadn't kept the 2-land hand because I'm a greedy man. But it was very interesting because we were put in a really interesting position, and we just came out ahead every time. I'd almost be willing to just turn that Brawl deck into a commander deck with Atali and just play a really fair Atali deck rather than playing the nasty Atali decks that we've seen so far.
Like when I went turn 2 Atali with 2 copies of Jeska's Will on turn 2.
Yeah,
that was a fun game. I mean, to be fair, the only reason I got the second Jeska's Will is because the thing I top decked with off of I think Alice's deck was Recursion Dragon, so it got me back the Jeska's Will. But nonetheless, regardless of that second cast, it was like a turn 2 Atali. It was a good top deck. I mean, sometimes you just got to.
Yeah, sometimes you get there and you can't be mad about it. But it was just like, oh man, I definitely had some great top decks with that Atali though, and during the Brawl match.
Yeah, worked really good. But I did want to take a time to publicly and on a YouTube channel thank Light and Alice and Elle and Sadriana for all of their efforts this weekend. It was a huge success, and it would have been nowhere without those willing to lead the charge. And from both of us, I'd like to say thank you for including us and giving us the honor of spending time on this event with you. We really enjoyed our time and got to see a lot of really cool games and meet a lot of really cool people, and all of that in the name of a great cause. So I'm not as good at the plug. I left it to them the whole weekend, but Crisis Text Line, please look them up if you are in need of some emergency mental health services. They are there. They're free. All you got to do is text. So go check them out if that's something that you are in need of. We highly recommend it. And again, thank you to that wonderful team, Praetors for Change. You can find them on Twitch and Twitter in various forms of that. I'm probably going to put their links in because why not?
Might as well.
Our show, and we do what we want. So thank you very much again, and congratulations on yet another successful event.
Absolutely.
But that allows me to lead into our topic for today, which is, Matt?
Well, we have decided that we want to do some cool things with Cube. And we've talked about Cube a few times here. We've talked about drafting cubes. We've talked about making cubes and building cubes. But what do we need to do in order to augment a cube to be sealed? And so I think what our plans for today is to take particularly Commander Cube, something that we've got built and ready to go, and augment how we approach so that we can play it as a sealed thing, which makes it easier to do things like 1v1 if you don't have enough people showing up. I mean, the cool thing about doing sealed is you can literally have as many players as you want. You don't need an even number of players. You don't need 4. You don't need 8. If you have 5 people show up to your house, you don't have to do a wonky version of your half draft. You can just play sealed.
Like I do have, we've put in place, and actually this is a rule that I've seen a couple others pick up. Well, one other, I guess. I don't know. But we did do a bit of a modification with my cube, and I think Light also picked up the rule of if you don't have a full pot of 8, then what you do is you deal out twice as many packs. Like say if you're playing with 4, you deal out 6 packs to each person, and then you just throw away the last half. So for example, my cube is 18 card packs. So you deal out 6 of those, and then once you have 9 cards picked out of a pack, you just pitch the rest back into the box. And it's to simulate having a full 8 pod. Like, I mean, it's not quite as competitive in that way, but it's because then you end up with, you don't end up having cards you were chasing get picked as often. But it also does simulate how, those other cards might have been picked, and then you're building a more cohesive deck. And what that counteracts is if you were to say have a pod of 4 people and you just drafted a whole set of 3 packs and just went through them all, you're going to end up with half that pack of each one where it was just junk because you're not seeing as many cards. The thing with any sort of limited environment is the more cards you can see, the more cohesive your decks will be. Same thing with so we do 6 packs for your average sealed event. And that usually ends up giving you, what did we decide? 45-ish cuts, give or take. Roughly. Maybe a little more than that, right? So the more cards you can see, the better you can make your deck. If you were to say sealed with 9 packs, what would that do to your deck, Matt?
It's wild the amount of consistency that comes out from upping packs. So like the first tip I always tell people if they want to take a draft environment and turn it into sealed is double the packs because of that consistency situation. But just to talk a little bit about how consistency works like that, if you ever go to like a league event or something like that, Adam has quite a bit of experience about with draft leagues and things in the past and sealed leagues and whatnot. The whole point of doing a league is to up the consistency as time passes. So originally your deck is whatever it happens to be, whatever cards you got, you have very limited format. And then as weeks progress, you add packs to it to give you a better chance of getting something that hones your deck into something. So the difference between 3 packs and 6 packs is huge in terms of a sealed event. And then 6 from 9 is even bigger because you're getting to continually add consistency, hone in on whatever's going on and things like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of probably the first thing we're going to look at. So when we're looking at drafting, we usually base it all off 3 packs. Like any cube you design, you can pick and choose what you would like. We just went with 3 because we like 3. It's pretty traditional. We just increased the size of the packs. I will admit wholeheartedly that I took the idea from a larger pack just right out of Commander Legends. Commander Legends came out of the box as 20 card packs, but you still drafted with 3. And that gave you a pool of 60 instead of 45. And that changed things so that you could have a 60 card deck instead of a 40 card deck. So if we were to go with sealed based off of this and we wanted to keep going, how many packs do you figure we would need if we wanted a 60 card commander deck to do like a sealed event?
I do think that 6 is going to be where you want to be. And I think that the proof of that is actually in the drafting for 4 players format that you were talking about earlier, right? When you are drafting, like you said, 6 packs, you do half of it and you throw it away. The throwing away part of it is literally doing the cutting of cards that you would do in sealed as a group, right? Those last sets of the cards in those packs are like, okay, at this point, all we would be doing is either honing in a couple of bombs that manage to make it into the packs that we want to pass around, or getting a bunch of garbage that we're going to filter out anyway. So let's just filter it and then move on to the next pack to do so. Sealed will do that in the deck making process. So 6 packs of 18 will end up getting you, oh boy, brain, let's work for me, 60, 48, 128 cards. No, 108 cards. I was a math teacher. Anyway.
I have a calculator.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day? Quick diversion. Remember back in the day when we were kids and they were teaching us math and they're like, you got to know your multiplication tables because you're not going to have like access to a calculator all the time.
They sure did not expect the spike of technology that we ended up with, did they?
No.
So,
I digress.
108 cards. If you're trying to build a 60-card deck, you're probably going to be playing 25-ish land. So you're running about 30, 35 cards. So you have about double the number of cards, or you have well over double the number of cards to have tons of cuts, which is important in a commander thing specifically because you have to build your deck within your commander's colors still. So I think having all of those excess cards, almost 4 times as many cards as you need, pretty close.
So To put it in perspective, then I'm not sure about the ratios. We can write this down and figure it out. But if you're looking at like your standard sealed event where you receive 6 15 card packs to build a 40 card deck out of, you would start with 90 out of your packs. Now, of course, and much as you would still find in a cube, like keep in mind too that this also includes any non-basic lands that might end up being draft picks, in the draft chaff, or even one of the rares or something like that. But 67 cuts out of your 90 cards. So if we were to look at that and say, okay, so we want what did you say, 35-ish? So 35 remaining out of 108. Not like you're probably making more cuts that way, but that's because we're doing it with 18 card packs instead of 15, but like basically the same.
Yeah, and the extra little bit there accounts a lot for the color issues that you might be running into. Because the other thing to remember is those 90 cards that you start with only have to make a 40 card deck in sealed. So that means that you only need about 23 cards out of that. So ish. So those ratios kind of they match well. We might end up in a couple more packs in the Commander one if we end up figuring out that the color ratios aren't working quite well enough to really narrow down into a 3-color or 2-color deck. Which brings me to the next idea that I was thinking of, which involves Two-Headed Giant. Now, I'm not going to get too far into how Two-Headed Giant works in a sealed environment and all this other stuff, but the important part is that amongst 2 people in a Two-Headed Giant environment, usually you end up with 8 packs, not 12 like you would think. And that's because they know that based on the ratios of the packs in the set, that one person will be able to do 1, 2, or 3 color combination, and the other person will be able to do the other 2 or 3 color combination and just use up the packs strategically. So if your packs are balanced well in your cube, that's something that happens naturally. So if not 6, 8 is probably going to be as many as you need. We probably won't have to up to 9 or 12 or whatever.
I don't think so. I think you're right, because like the 8 packs between 2 players in a traditional Two-Headed Giant sealed is kind of like drafting your packs between 2 players, right? Now you do it as a committee, right? Like you sit down as 2 players in a team and you say, okay, like these are your black and your red, and this is your blue and your green, and like these are the ones. And so you draft them between the 2 decks. So it's kind of like that. So I don't think you would need to go. I think that like 8 would be the max, I would say. And the only reason that I am like on board with that, because fewer the better just makes it easier for you to like make the decisions, because too many, it's decision paralysis is real, especially in something like that. And I know this even as like building regular sealed decks, I suck. And that's one of the things, because I just want to run all the things. I am terrible at sealed because I want to run 4 color. Like I want all these cool cards. So like the more we can cut down on decision paralysis, I think the better we can do. But at the same token, one thing that I'm not willing to sacrifice when we're discussing this is color identity. We've designed the whole cube around color identity. Like my cube specifically has a boatload of multicolored creatures to specifically support this. And I think that like just the sheer ratio, even though we're not going to probably end up doing like pack distribution, just because my cube is not rarity balanced at all, and I don't have any intention of doing so. But making sure that you just have like the sheer number will allow you to still reach your color identity with enough playables that's going to make it so that you can do that. I think that's a good idea. I say it was pick 6 packs to start, but I think we're going to have to test and see what 8 does. But I'm just going to write. We're writing this down as we go. I just like to point out to everybody playing the home game that we did not discuss any of this in advance. I said, hey, let's see if we can make a cube into a sealed thing. And then I said, we're not talking about it anymore till we turn the camera on. So everything that we're doing, we have no notes. We're coming up with this on the fly and discussing this so we can try and figure out if it's possible. I mean, strictly speaking, of course it's possible, right?
With enough tweaking, you can make anything work. Like it's something you could do. Worst case scenario, you just put it in. You put the same rules into effect and change the cube to suit the situation, because you could always do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you wanted to end up breaking it down into actual rarities, then that's a possibility too. Like, I
Hmm.
know that there are some, like, for example, if you're doing a set cube, usually what you're going to do is have your rare set aside your uncommons and you build appropriately distributed packs.
Hmm.
Again, I have no intention of doing that with mine, though.
It's a lot of work. It's definitely something that takes a lot of time and effort. I've talked about it before. We used to do it as it was sort of the pre-game of the game, was making sure that the packs were set up correctly.
Yep.
So it's a lot of effort, and honestly, sometimes it's just not worth it. It totally depends on your cube, but like,
And your friends.
yeah, just hard shuffle, do
Right.
your best. One
Yeah.
thing one thing I will say though, as far as color identity is concerned, is I don't think it's an issue in the cube that we're going to be using now. But if you're using a commander cube that uses a lot of hybrid pips, so like can be paid with red or white or something like that, I would consider being more lenient on the color identity situation when it comes to those hybrid cards, if you're trying to make sure that sealed decks kind of have an even consistency across the board. Only because they might only end up with one 3-color commander, and then white's not in it, but they somehow got the Boros Reckoner of the thing. In general, we're all there to have fun. If you like playing hybrid cost cards in your cube, think about it. That way you don't have to extend the number of packs to make up for that situation.
Yeah, like I don't personally run that many. I think I run Sundering, Growth, and Boros, Evil Boros Charm, the playtest one.
Yes.
Like those two have hybrid pips on them, and I do, because I have so few, I do hold to the the commander rules committee ruling on hybrid pips because it doesn't change much. But Matt's right. If you're going to be playing a lot of these, if you like these and you like their flexibility, and you're going to be doing, especially in sealed, if you're doing it in a draft format, then like tough Tuckers for you.
Yeah. Draft right.
Draft right? Like right. You have the option. But like if you're going to do it in a sealed, then you can maybe be lenient on it. But I mean, you're going to know this from your own cube and what you build into it. And if you decide to take these rules for a spin, you're going to learn real quick whether or not that works for your cube or not.
Yeah.
I think that even in looking at the way I know I built my cube and looking at the way we're discussing this, I would say that I still don't care. The rule applies because it's not enough. It's not going to affect that.
Yeah, no, it would have to be well more than 10 to even be worried about it. But
10 in your pool.
Yeah. But you
right?
know,
like
if you're a Lorwyn fan, think about it. That's it. That's all.
Return to Ravnica fan?
Yeah.
They did definitely bring him back for that one.
Yeah.
Sundering Growth is a good card. Okay. I know, it's so good. I finally crammed it into some stuff. Anyway, we digress. Okay, so I've got, on the point of 6 packs to start, 8 may be needed. I think I agree with this. I would still shoot with 6, see where it gets, because that's a lot of cuts all the same. And another thing to add, and because this is a rule specific to apparently every cube that I have any influence over. Again, I did not make this rule. I stole it from someone else. But we have the starter pack. And I think that I would still have the starter pack for this sealed, which then, of course, adds 8 more cards. So now you're actually dealing with 110 to get down to, what did we say, 35? Like,
yeah.
I think 6 is probably tons. I would try 6, and then if we find that we're just getting hosed, like the only thing I could see messing with this, and there's literally nothing we can do about it, is the randomization of the cards. Like if you end up with such a spread in your pool that you can't like successfully construct a 60 card deck based off of the cards you get, which I do not see happening. 35 is not that many to reach.
Right.
Then I can see there being potentially a need to be lenient on some of these rules. But I think that like 110 with like 75 cuts is probably manageable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that overall the only reason we run into issues at all is because cubes are built generally by 1 or 2 people, and it's hard to fit in those stopgaps as an individual game developer trying to make sure that things don't work out. And the starter pack works so well in filling in a lot of the problems with the mana issues that might happen and all that stuff that it's not even a question. I think that we're totally set on that.
Mm-hmm. And it's like the starter pack is actually only because we adhere to color identity. I don't know if I've ever been like super clear in any past episodes, but like the only reason why any of us use it at all is because we've all decided that color identity is important and we need to stick to it. But because of that, we need to make sure people can actually play the stupid color cards that they need, right? That's why we have arcane signets. That's why we have the like terramorphic expanses and command towers and stuff in there. Like we have that together so that people can actually successfully achieve color identity without really stressing over what's in their pool and like, can I actually make it? All you got to worry about is choosing your basics, maybe the odd pickup of a dual land that's in there, and you should be good to go. Also, that means you get to cut down on the amount of ramp you put in a cube, but that's neither here nor there.
And honestly, I think that finding a balance for your own cube is always going to be, a personal journey. But whatever balances you find for your cube should translate to sealed pretty easily. Because I know a lot of people will look at a seal pool sometimes and go, I can't build anything. I ended up with like even distribution of cards perfectly in such a way that I can't build anything. The truth is you can build something. It's just not going to be as good as you might want it to be.
So every sealed pool I've ever drawn.
But sometimes
I can put 40 of these into a pile and call it a deck, I guess.
But sometimes you gotta be willing to put that little asterisk and add in might be a skill issue, right? Like
get bent.
Sometimes.
Moving on. Moving on. I think that's a big portion of it. I think this is where I'm gonna do an interlude. We haven't done one of these in quite some time, and I don't want to miss out on it. So we're gonna duck into Scryfall Randomizer, and we're going to pick up a card to discuss if we think it is good in Cube, in Sealed, in Draft, and in Constructed Commander. I think it's been so long. Holy cow.
That's pretty much. Yeah.
We were so much better at this several episodes ago. I have found one that I think is actually worth talking about because I think it could actually be good or bad depending. I was mashing a bunch that weren't going to be good for content, but
right.
Quandrix Cultivator. 1 green, hybrid green-blue, and a blue for a 3/4 Turtle Druid, which is actually a really fun creature tagline. And when Quandrix Cultivator enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic, forest, or island card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
A Strixhaven legend. Not legendary creature, but a Strixhaven legend. Where do you want to start on this one?
Well, you seem to have some thoughts.
I do. I'll talk particularly about it in Sealed and Draft. So this card is an absolute powerhouse in both Sealed and Draft because being able to search your to get a 3/4 that puts a untapped basic forest or basic island on the board is pretty strong. It's quite legit. Quandrix was a house during Strixhaven either way for Sealed and Draft, because blue-green often ends up being pretty powerful. Then they put in things like, what's that one card that we were just talking about this the other day? Blue-green, draw a card, and then play an additional land.
Growth Spiral.
Growth Spiral. Things like Growth Spiral, things like that were rampant at the time. And this card is just one of those things in a limited environment. 3/4 is such a solid body. It can block. It can trade, eat up a lot of times in a sealed format. And the fact that it gets you an extra land and puts you at potentially 6 land on turn 5 is huge.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it was probably also decent because I can't remember exactly when it came out, but I'm pretty sure it lined up with that the Simic 3 cost elemental that would like it or another
Uro.
elemental comes on. No.
Oh,
I mean, I see what you're saying, but no, I'm thinking about the uncommon little feller.
Risen Reef?
Now. Yeah, that's the one.
Risen Reef.
So like it was in standard with Risen Reef, and although this
Mhm.
isn't like, it was just another like Simic value piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so like even if you weren't running like elementals, these would be together. Even if you weren't running non-elementals, like you would still cram this into that deck because it still did the landfall thing, because
Mm-hmm.
it was, yeah, I can see that being real good.
Mm-hmm.
What about in like in Commander?
In regular Commander, well, I think its price tag kind of speaks for itself. You can get this card in the US for 6 cents. It is. I still don't think it's bad. I wouldn't say that it's a bad card to add. And when we were talking earlier about a perfect storm for a Commander deck being a bunch of medium cards and then some heavy hitters to fill it out, this is definitely one of those medium cards that I would consider when it comes to trying to like pad out a blue-green deck with things that people don't always see but definitely can do work. And 6 cents is highly affordable. So that's something to be said. But like, do you run this in the place of, I don't know, like Llanowar Elves or other versions of Ramp that do things? Probably not, because the fact that it only gets you a basic forest or a basic island, it's no Nature's Lore that can get you any tri-land or whatever that has green in it or whatever. But that being said, it ramps, it's a body, it does stuff. I think it's not something that you will see often in Commander, but that's only because of how high of a power level Commander can get.
Yeah. Like, I would see this doing something like 4 is pretty hot, I think, for the way that most of us like view Commander ramp these days. Like, we've talked at length about how 3 mana rocks are perfectly playable, but 4 starts getting a bit aggressive. I mean, in the 4 mana space, we're looking at explosive veggies, we're looking at Skyshroud Claim, we're looking at the new invasion of Zendikar. Stuff like this fills out that 4 slot. Now, none of those provide you a body, I will admit. Those are all spells, but they all get you 2 land, which is like a huge difference. And I mean, I don't know that this is going to just be like a catch-all. Where I do see this fitting is like your Yarick style decks, your Panharmonicon decks. If you can drop this and tutor out 2 lands for 4 and make it an explosive veggies, I think you're laughing. So like, and as a 6 cent card, you pointed it out perfectly. This is a great budget pick, and it's great for down tuning. I think that's a key point, because Simic, you're right on the nose today, bud. Simic stuff tends to be like it's either all amazing or it's all garbage. There's no in between, and this kind of like helps you find that middle ground, I think, because now you're not just like powering through everything. Like, you still got to pay 4 mana. Maybe you get it discounted by 1 with like the Vivian or something like that. But like, it's fine. And being fine is actually kind of good these days if you're trying to make it so that you can play your deck at multiple tables and not just like either overrun your friends or fail miserably while everyone else just keeps going.
I feel like I mentioned this to Adam earlier. I have to relearn this lesson every year. But I have relearned the lesson that a lot of medium, the things that we call medium, are the places that you want to enjoy the game. And there are just so many good cards that you can get lost in the sauce trying to build a good deck using good cards. And honestly, I could see this card being in a Commander deck that I lose to, and I wouldn't have even thought about it. Like, it wasn't something that I would have thought about. But if I ended up playing against somebody's Landfall deck and they dropped a Quandrix Cultivator on the board, I would be like, oh, I never considered running this card, and you're about to kill me with it. For sure. I am for sure going to die because you got that Quandrix Cultivator instead of a Rampant Growth or something, because where you didn't have a body before, you now have a body.
Yeah.
And that's going to entirely ruin the calculus for the next 4 turns. So
Yeah.
good on you. You found a 6-cent solution to my $3,000 deck or whatever, right?
Yeah, right? Like,
So,
and I think that those, and we've just, I don't know how often we discuss it, but those end up being the games that like are the most entertaining anyway, right? Like either we're all in that like top level, or we're all in like this like mid range where like everybody's just like kind of having fun. And I think that this keeps you in that mid range without like really breaking the bank and without doing anything too crazy. So I like it in there. I will say that I keep cutting it. I keep trying, but I think it's because like I think a lot of it's to do with like just who we end up playing with most frequently, that like I have other things that I like to mess around with in my decks to keep them in that medium, and I don't think that my acceleration is one of those areas.
I think that's fair. And also, Turtle Druid is not a great type line for a lot of decks.
Yeah.
Like if this were an elf or an elemental, like those are significant enough type lines that this would be like a huge beater in those. But as a Turtle Druid, it ends up falling short, because if you're playing turtles because you like turtles. You're not playing turtles because turtles are good. And if you're playing druids, there are way better druids to play than this. Yeah. So what about Cube though? How are you feeling on this on Cube?
I think for all the reasons we were talking about why it's good in like where you would put it in Commander, I think it'd be a good Cube card. If you're looking at like, again, I don't put a lot of ramp in mine. I have some because it's just a fact of Commander, but I don't put a lot in, and I was like a little picky about mine. If you're a little bit more flexible with your ramp in yours, then I could see this being like a nice mid option that won't overpower your cube. Like 4 is enough in like a in a limited Commander format that I think that it would be slow enough that it won't break anything or be too hard to balance around. So I would say that this is like an excellent slot in if you're looking to increase the ramp in your cube without increasing the power of your cube too much.
Yeah. You want to hear a hot take on this? I think that this belongs in the cube that we're building for the channel. Okay. I think that it's such a solid option without being too much. We're going to be adding multicolored cards in as we go along anyway. This is a very affordable ramp option that is likely not going to help any of the other type situations in deck or anything like that. So it's so non-offensive that it fits rather well.
I just added it into our cube while we were chatting.
Perfect.
There you go. So there you go. I guess by that logic, yes, it's an amazing cube card, and you should put it in yours, apparently.
I just like highly inoffensive cards. I'll tell you, I have a lot of stories about Magic, but none of them quite make me as happy as a very important win with my bear deck, which I think I've told this story on the cast before. But essentially, one of the people I was playing with was playing the Vizier Poisons, the one that gives neg-1 counters, and Carnifex Demon, and a bunch of other hot garbage that will completely obliterate a group of 2/2s. And so I had to fight tooth and nail to get a board presence going. No pun intended, with it being mono green. But I ended up winning. I did not win that game. I ended up beating that person because we had just enough on the board to play. Is it Bearscape that makes 4 bears and then
sounds about right. I'm not
something like that. Anyway, it's a sorcery card. It makes 4 bears, and then it has Threshold make 4 more. Like it has Flashback with Threshold or something like that. So I had a Eula out. I made 4 bears, pumped her 3 times, and then killed one of the blockers with the first hit. Then I did it again, pumped her 3 times and killed the second blocker with that. And then I cast Overwhelming Stampede, gave her double power, and killed that person with commander damage. And that was a huge upset. Like, I knew I was not going to win the commander game after doing that because I had to resort so many resources to this one person. But folding in a bunch of cards that generally people are like, this is garbage, or this doesn't do much, or whatever, and managing to win with these very medium cards, it holds a very special place in my heart. And it makes for the best stories.
I can't argue that at all. There's nothing to like add to that. That is no notes, 10 out of 10.
All right, well then let's get back to it.
I agree. So we have decided on 6 packs to start. We're going to continue using our bonus pack. What are some other rules we might need to consider?
I think one of the big things that you do while testing this kind of thing is finding out where balance lies when you're dealing with sealed, because sealed and draft have similar balancing issues, but one thing that sealed always has more issue with is overall color dispersion, right? So for now, I don't think you necessarily add something, but we might end up with something like either a Prismatic Piper type rule, like add that into your starting pack or something, or some other situation, just to deal with the times where things are spread super duper thin. Because like you said, sometimes you just want to build a 4-color sealed deck. And in regular sealed, that's easy to do because you have, I mean, you can build it. Like, is it going to be good necessarily? Maybe not. But you don't have color restriction blocking you. So if you want to follow that color restriction, Prismatic Piper or the other one from...
the Faceless one.
Faceless one, thank you. Either of those would be usable, and you just say, yeah, you can partner it with any commander in your group. And hey, if someone in your group thinks that they can build a 4-color monstrosity because they were given that opportunity, you know, Das Vidania, give it a shot, you know, like, might as well. The balance will end up revealing itself within multiple play tests of that situation.
Okay. Yeah, and like I think you're right. Like I worry that it would be spread too thin, but I gotta wonder if like I wrote the rule down anyway. I just worded it in a way of like keep a Piper on hand. Just in case it's needed. Maybe you're right. Maybe somebody ends up like, maybe there's somebody like me who doesn't do very good at sealed and isn't willing to just take like whatever is there and just like go ham with it. And they end up stressing about it. And this might just be the thing that makes the game fun for them. I'm not saying that like they're going to do a bad thing by wanting this, but just that like, rather than stress about what to cut, they just pick a bunch of the favorites that they found in their pile. They put the Piper on there and they run a 4-color BS or even a 3-color BS that they didn't get the 3-color legend they wanted, whatever, just to take the stress off and keep the thing fun. Because here's the thing that like, and I guess where I struggle with regular sealed and why I don't know that I super enjoy this topic as like from a holistic, like an intrinsic level, is because I don't want to play this game to stress. And I know that we talked about this a couple of times, like why neither of us really go ham on Arena on our individual streams, because a lot of times things like sealed give me a lot of stress and a lot of like salt just from its sheer existence, right? Like it's not what I'm here to do. I want to drink beer and eat tapas with my friends, and like sitting on Arena, staring at a screen. And there's a couple of creators that did a video not too long ago. I can't remember exactly who they were, so I'm not going to do that. But one line that I heard them touch on was that playing a control mirror match on Arena is awful, but playing a control mirror match in person is fun.
It's true. It's so
and like,
true.
Blew my friggin' mind. And like, I don't agree with the exact statement, but the sentiment is there. Doing something that is like agony can be fun if you're sharing the experience, right? Like a control mirror match isn't just junk for you, it's junk for both players, right? Like you're both fighting through each other's garbage. So like something similar to that effect is like sitting on arena staring at a sealed pool that I know I'm going to end up going 1 and 3 with, and I'm going to scrub out hard when I open the packs and I look at this like flaming pile of trash. That happens to me every time. I know you don't know what this feels like.
Well,
but it's just like it.
I do though. So here's something interesting that's kind of a direct line of that. Adam, when you build decks at home, typically how much time do you spend on them?
Oh, that's a broad question. Depends on the deck and where I'm looking for the cards. If you're looking for like an average, let's say 3 hours.
3 hours. 3 hours spending the deck. If you are on arena staring at a sealed pool for longer than 25 minutes, you're going to go blind. You're going to lose your mind, because it doesn't take long when the cards are all like digitized and on a screen and not in your hand where you can flip them and manipulate them and move them as you want, for them to all kind of start blurring together and become one sort of like mesh of numbers and words, right?
Pixels, yeah.
And my personal thing when I build decks at sealed events, or when I've gone to competitive sealed events and things like that, is I always build 2 decks. And then I can look at both decks and kind of go, this one's the better one. This one's going to throw people off. This is my main deck. This is my side deck, blah, blah, blah. I can't do that on Sealed in Arena. There's no way to do it. I would have to click on every card, get it out of my deck while doing the switch, and then put in a whole new deck in time, in that little timer thing. It's too much extra work. It's too much extra stress that I wouldn't even normally have in a paper environment. So I definitely know where that comes from, right? So I can see why that's rough and why that's a thing. I think that sealed in a non-timed environment, when you're not thinking, when you've devoted the night to play sealed, is a lot less stressful than the moments of like, I'm on a stream, I need to be good about things, I need to manage my time well. But God damn it, if I haven't looked at this pack for 15 minutes trying to figure out which one of these medium red cards I'm going to throw in. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, and that does like it. Well, it's nice to hear some solidarity, but yeah, like, so that's just the general idea I think I'm having is like looking at doing this, because I know that it can like benefit some people that have cubes and don't have the opportunity to get enough people to draft with. I know, and we mentioned it beforehand, but there's drafting rules for like smaller numbers of people when you're doing, say, like a 1v1 draft. But like, we're talking Commander here. There's so many cards you're going to want to put in that like you can't just sit there and Rochester draft, which I can't even remember the rules to right now, but I know it involves, like, that's the one with 3 little piles, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
There's there's like Winston draft, which is a very cool one where you like set the piles grow as you don't pick up a pile and this kind of thing.
Yeah. But like, if we're talking like reaching like a critical mass of like 80 cards or more, as you're trying to do one of these like 1v1 drafting things, you're going to spend more time drafting than you're going to spend playing. And so like coming up with ways to like reach into the box, grab a stack of cards, count them out. Because when we did the math on number of packs, they're not in packs. You don't got to crack them. All you got to do is hit that number. Yeah. So we say, okay, reach in, grab 100 cards. Because the other thing too is that like these are like loose rules. It's your cube. You do what you want. If 102 cards is too weird a number, pick a better number, right? Like is 100 that different than 102 when you're going to be throwing out 45 of them anyway?
Grab a 2-inch stack. Yeah, that could be the augmentation of things. And
reach in and just go like this. And then put your stacks beside each other. And as long as they're roughly speaking the same size, you're good to go. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the purpose of why I brought it up is like just like the thought exercise more than anything else of like saying like don't stress so hard about your cube specifically about how to like, oh, I can't find a cube night or
Mm-hmm.
whatever have you. Like just pick a number of cards that you want out of your cube. Say you and your friend sitting across the table, put it together and just have yourself a little bit of a brawl night. Because that's basically what brawl is. It's just 1v1 commander. And I don't personally like playing brawl in arena. I know that you are like fancy on it. You had a good experience this weekend. And honestly, I shouldn't say that. It flavored my experience a little bit better because watching it be successful was like encouraging. I just keep thinking about all the times that I sat down across from like a Sithis Harvest Hand, like
Sure.
stacks deck on arena. And you're like, this is not fun on a good day. And then you end up in that same situation where you're staring at nothing but a screen and you can't have that interaction. But if you just have one friend that you want to have come over, or even if you have it digitally, because we've talked about it, and again, hit us up on the socials or in the comments and we can reach out to you on how we've come up with how to do these drafts using digital aids. And you can still make this work. And I've already thought of ideas on using the website that we use to draft on how to do this. And we can put this together and just have like a 1v1 sit there and chat about it. You know, put it together on Mox Field, put it in a spell table 1v1 and just set up a Discord call and have yourself a good old time. This is I think what I wanted out of this, because I want to play my cube more, but it is pulling teeth to get even 4 people together. Like, we were just been complaining before stream, you and I, Matt, about how little we get to play these days. You know, we just had a whole weekend. How many games did you get to play this weekend when we were having a whole weekend of Magic?
I played 1 game of Commander and then 3 games of Brawl on Arena against randos.
That is exactly 4 games more than me. Right? Like, there's just so much to do in life, right? We're all grown-ups. We all got lives. We all got shit to do. And I'm probably not even going to cut that curse word because I usually try to make sure we don't curse on here. But that one's just too on point. We're all grown-ups.
It's true.
So, like, when you get the one opportunity, and I got to tell you, you know what I'm probably going to do with this info that we've come together with? Because I mostly wanted to just figure out a way to play with Libby. We don't play enough Magic.
And
we're both into it.
It's going to be great. Like, honestly, it's going to be great because it doesn't matter how you play. It matters that you play, right? And that's something that every Magic player, I think, can use reinforcement on. I know that there are some people out there who are just like crazy about like hard counter combos, or they really hate it when their opponent is playing X card or Y strategy or whatever. But the truth is that the only way to get over any hangups that you're having with Magic is to play Magic. And it's, you know, get used to things that you don't like, learn how to accept what you don't like, and learn to enjoy what you do. And just really just sit down and have fun doing the thing that you love.
And that's why you build a cube. So hopefully we've given you an idea on how to further enjoy your cube in more situations. I know that we actually really didn't create that many rules, honestly. A quick refresh of the rules. Still use the bonus pack. Just grab 6 packs / a number that's even-ish, and then keep a Piper on hand. Those were the rules we came up with, just so that you could take your cube that you put all this time and effort in that I know for a fact you want to share with people, and find a way to share it with a smaller number of people if you have to. Sometimes you don't have time for a whole draft anyway.
Yep. And sometimes the less rules there are, the easier it is to do. So
that's true. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
I kind of like to reach in and just grab a pile, honestly. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. I was just like, this
is good. It's good. Yeah. I bet it's going to work.
I'm going to find out, and I'm going to probably post about it on social after we post this episode and see how it goes. Also, I need to make sure that Libby's got time because that's a whole other thing. But anyway, gang, I think that's probably all I have to say on it. How about you?
Yep.
Cool. Then on that note, gang, thank you so much for coming to hang out. And Matt, thanks for your help on this. It was totally selfish. I didn't tell you about this beforehand. You thought it was for content. It was totally for me.
Oh, that's all right. I'm glad to help every day of the week. And I love to talk.
Thanks, buddy. I love you a bunch. And we love you too. Thank you very much for coming. Congrats again to our friends at Parators for Change and all of their great success. And we will see you next time on Unlimited Commander. Have a great time.
Bye.
If you liked what we had to say, consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support goes directly to growing and improving the show.
You can also like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Make sure to comment or leave a review. The cast can also be found on Twitter at Unlimited Commander.
You can find Matt's Twitch, Twitter, and other YouTube projects at knowledgepoolmtg.com.
And Adam can be found on Twitch and Twitter at Adamus_Prime86.
Our theme song is Polaroid by Harris Heller, licensed by Creative Commons.